9th, 2025 Newmarket School Board meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I read it. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kareem, you can go ahead and keep it.
Yeah, please. All right, as always, first item on our agenda is to open up the floor for public comment. If any members of the public would like to make a comment, please feel free to approach the podium. And seeing no movement, we'll go ahead and close public comment at 5:17. Next up, we have any board comments or committee updates. I do have a couple. So the Teacher Growth and Evaluation Committee met and continue to make great progress on the evaluation system and growth systems. The other is that just to let the public know that there are 2 positions on the board opening up this election for 3-year periods each, and the filing period is open from January 22nd to the 31st, if anyone's interested. Any other?
Yeah, the Budget Committee has been meeting weekly now that we're in the throes of budget season. Most recently, on Monday night, we had the public hearing for both the school district and the town's budgets. Todd was there and presented, as well as Steve Fournier for the town. It seemed to be well received by the Budget Committee. No members of the public per normal, but that's behind us. So at the next Budget Committee meeting on Monday night, the committee will vote to recommend or not recommend or adjust, which is uncommon, but within the purview, the budget submitted by the school district and the town, and barring any petition warrants or any reconsideration of something that the committee votes not to recommend. From there, we're kind of, skating straight downhill into the deliberative session.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
So Master Plan Committee met last night. I was unable to attend, but I will get the notes from the meeting and report back here at the next meeting. And I don't know if I should say this for superintendent, because you might be saying something with this. Teacher of the Year nominations are opening up. I heard that today.
Go ahead.
And so the process, is anyone can nominate a Teacher of the Year, anyone, then that person has to accept. So parents, other teachers, so for the massive crowd at home that's watching here, any parent that's wow, my student has a great teacher, anyone can go to the Department of Education website and nominate a teacher. They have to accept and want to go through the arduous process of Teacher of the Year, but just wanted to make that. I heard that today and thought it would be good to share.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right, we will move right along then. Headed to student rep reports with Olivia Blackadar.
Yeah, so girls basketball last Friday traveled to Mount Royal and won 42-22. They also won Tuesday's game against Franklin 39-24. Tomorrow they have a home game against Sunapee at 5, and then also are playing Epic home Monday at 5:30. Boys basketball also won against Franklin 58-36, so they remain undefeated. Home game versus Sunapee tomorrow at 6:30, and then Epic home game Monday as well at 7. JV boys basketball went to Concord Christian, and then also have a home game next Monday against Epic at 4. The swim team had a meet Sunday at UNH, and they have one coming this Sunday too, also at UNH. Hockey, last Saturday played Winnicott. They just lost Merrimack last night, 0-7. And then Saturday they played Bishop Brady at 7. Indoor track had a meet at Plymouth State. They have a meet this Sunday at UNH, and then next Wednesday, girls have a relay meet, followed by the boys relay meet Thursday. And then as for clubs, there's not much to report on right now because everyone's just easing back from break. So,
Thank you so much. Anyone have any questions? No? Head right into the superintendent report.
Well, thank you. You should also point out that both boys and girls basketball teams were profiled on the MUR when they played Franklin, both games. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah. Just a couple of things I wanted to share. As Dan noted, we presented to the Budget Committee, and we wait their recommendations on Monday night. As Dan pointed out, it was pretty uneventful, but I think things went pretty well. I did receive this week a follow-up, and actually this tied into something we talked about at our last board meeting. We were talking about average per pupil cost, and so the state released the FY24 per pupil cost average today or earlier this week. The state average for FY24 is $21,545, and Newmarket's average was $23,269. To remind you, in the year we talked about, Newmarket's, the state's average was $20,323, and Newmarket's was $22,866. What I noted there is exactly what I said was going to happen, is that the gap between the state average and Newmarket is closing. So the difference between the state average and Newmarket for this year is about $1,700, or for FY24, and in the previous year it was more like $2,300. So the gap is closing, and the state average is growing at a rate of 6%, and Newmarket grew at a rate of 1.8%. So the per pupil cost is definitely being reined in. And as I predict with the 24-25, we made some changes, and you'll probably see similar closing of the gap. And then obviously with the budget that we've developed for 25-26, you'll probably see at least some incremental gain there. So it's just important to keep that in mind. So because the issue of per pupil cost was something that was of concern, I think it's really important to note that that gap is closing, and we are working to I keep using the term right-sizing things to make sure that we have the right number of staff to do the things we need to do, and I think we're getting to that place.
Is that inclusive of the bond?
Yes, that includes the bond.
So minus 2,000,
Where actually would be, if you,
below.
using that logic, we would be below the state average if you extract the cost of our bond.
So for folks who don't know, the bond payment is about $2,125,
Yep. Just about
$2,100
Yep.
per student, approximately.
Right. And so if you remove that from our average, Newmarket's average is about $400 less than state average, give or take. It was interesting. One of the other calculations that they provided was they gave the equalized value per pupil. In other words, how much property value does a town have to pay for one student to be educated? In Newmarket, the cost is $1,734,000 worth of property value to pay for a child. The state average is just a little over $2 million. Of course, towns like, for example, Newington, the average is $20 million per kid. So the gap is
If we put all our properties together,
yeah.
we can afford to pay for half a child.
There you go. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting way to look at it, because I'd never thought of it that way.
Yeah, what is your take on that metric? To me, it seems
Well,
a little, I'm not sure where the value is in that.
It's like per
we are.
pencils or something.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you're better off to have a higher value per kid, because that means you're paying at a rate that's lower. So to be about
Well, you're paying the same amount of money.
Well,
It's just the calculus is a little changed.
right, but how the burden is spread out.
Sure, okay.
So this is based on, I mean, to me, what it speaks to is the inequity of a system that is based on property tax. The reality is, across the state, you need about, the average is $2 million of value to pay for one student's education. Newmarket, we're about 20% behind that. So you might argue that the burden was higher in Newmarket because we're not matching the state average in terms of equity. So if you look at it from a standpoint of, okay, what would be another mechanism to collect taxes for schools, such as, God forbid, a broad-based income tax that included everybody, you would distribute it much more equitably. By doing it the way we do, it targets property value, and as we've talked about many times at the board table, with the property reeval that we've faced, there are people who nothing in their life has changed except they got a piece of paper telling them, hey, your property just doubled in value, pay this. And that's the reality of the situation we're in. And I think Newmarket, on average, our property values we're behind the state in terms of the tax collection rate. So I think Newmarket people are more burdened, I guess I would say. That's what I'm trying to get to.
I thank you. Whenever I see a statistic that's just that esoteric, okay, somebody's trying to make a point about something, and was just curious.
Yeah, I think it looks to tax burden, I think, is what it gets down to.
We probably should just point out for the two people at home, that even though the property value is doubled, that does not mean the property taxes people
Correct.
are paying is doubled.
Correct.
That there has been an adjustment, but unfortunately, people who are lower income seem to be bearing the burden a little bit more.
Well, I think what is happening, again, it's an inequitable system based on property value. What has happened in Newmarket is the lower end of the market has appreciated more in value than the top end of the market. So what's happening is a skewing of the burden on the lower end of the scale, which is...
I don't want the town clerk getting a bunch of calls about doubling property taxes.
No, the property tax rate is dramatically down. I mean, it's 70% less than it was last year, but if your property value goes up more than that, your tax bill goes up. Kind of shifting the gears, I was at a meeting today of the New Hampshire School Administrators Association. We did talk quite a bit about the upcoming legislative session. Clearly, we're still on the front end. They are tracking 280 bills across the legislature that have a potential to have impact on public education. At this point, the language for those bills are not out. However, topics are becoming, more and more of interest. There's a number of bills that deal with parental rights, expansions of parental rights. There's a lot of school funding related provisions. Number of attempts to expand the EFA program. All of those things are out there. I do want to mention Tony Weinstein, our newly elected state legislature, did reach out to me earlier this week, and where she has actually been selected to the Education Finance Committee, so she's going to be involved in that. So she and I are going to meet next week and kind of talk about that. And obviously, we already know Mr. Cahill is very actively involved on that issue as well. And I would like to invite Patty Wands to come to the mic for a second. She actually was involved today. She and Sean Pine were involved in a presentation that I wanted her to take a couple of minutes to tell you about. It's kind of an exciting presentation because it relates to some things we've talked about at the board table over the last few months.
Always fun to share happy news. I think it's really exciting for Newmarket. So as you know, I serve on a state leadership team, and I have for over 5 or 6 years. And recently, I was asked to represent the state of New Hampshire. A few of us on the state team were asked to attend these monthly national meetings from CEDAR, which is the national organization out of the University of Florida, which is that Collaborative for Effective Educator Development, Accountability, and Reform. So they have these monthly meetings that they call TAG, Topical Action Groups. So I attend them monthly, and they're virtual, over Zoom. And we focus on, we call them PSELs, Professional Standards for Educational Leadership. And the group takes from those standards and kind of refines them really toward educational leaders and, for example, multi-tiered systems of supports, how we build those foundations in school, assessment, data, all of that. So our focus for the meeting was earlier today at 3. The focus was Standard 4. And Standard 4 is curriculum, instruction, and assessment. So a month ago, I received an email like, getting ready for our January 9th meeting. We're going to focus on Standard 4, curriculum, instruction, and assessment, which is inclusive leadership at the building level and the district level. And they tied in multi-tiered system support and data. And so I'm reading this email, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to throw our hat in the ring. And I am going to just shout out loud about grade 5 and just the different way that they're serving and meeting the needs of all of their students. And we have the data that clearly shows that. So I wrote a pretty lengthy email to the facilitator of that meeting to inform her about work that we've been doing at the elementary school. And she emailed me within 2 days and said, we're very interested. Could you prepare a slide deck? You only have 10 minutes and share your story. Like, yes, I will do that. So got to work pretty quickly, my data slides, of course, were very important to showcase those. Sean and I got together, we really collaborated together. I actually met with fifth grade team. I let them know. I said, hey, I have this idea. I have no idea if we'll get selected, but let's give it a try. And then I met with Sarah Denham, the special educator on that team as well, kind of hear her story of how they make all this work. And then I put a slide deck together. And I sent it off to the facilitator, and she said, you have way too many slides. And I said, okay, and she's telling me how to pare it down. And then Sean and I presented earlier today, and there were 13 states that were represented on that call, and I can tell you that the educators from, we had a lot of university recognition in terms of the chat. I could see like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting, this data is amazing. And so I'm hopeful I can get more of the comments, because we just ended. But states that were represented were California, Colorado, Connecticut, Georgia, Mississippi, North Carolina, New York, Ohio, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Virginia, Vermont, and Washington. So quite a wide range. So Sean and I shared our work. They asked a few questions of us, and I'm proud of the entire school, of course, and the entire district, and the heavy lifting that's going on. Because as we said, this work is not easy, and it's not about perfection, it's about progress. It's about, do we see our trend lines going up? That's progress. We're not looking for perfection. And it's the hard work. And I really spoke to the fifth grade teachers and special educators. They are the epitome of educators with a growth mindset. How they come together, how they collaborate together, how they question, how they reflect. And you can see that in student outcomes. So I wanted to share that good news. That was pretty exciting. So I'm hopeful that I'll get some feedback from Abby Brenner. She's the facilitator for that group. And then I thought I would just,
While you're there, why don't you talk
PT?
about January 17th, just what's going on in the district?
Yeah, so we're really excited for another district-wide PD day, January 17th. We have some different things going on. I'll speak to the elementary school. We have two facilitators, professional learning facilitators coming from My View, the literacy program that we're implementing. And we have one facilitator is working with our K-2 teachers, while simultaneously we have another facilitator working with our grade 3-5 teachers. They're going to work with them for 3 hours. And then after that, teachers will have time to collaborate by grade level from that work and to help with planning. They have lunch. And then in the afternoon for 2 hours, they work with John Vanderels on their school growth plan. And they have a little bit more of independent work time at the end of the day as well. So that's the elementary school. Our paraprofessional educators are also involved in that work, but we're giving them some choice where they can choose to attend the literacy professional development, or, now I'm going to speak to the middle high school, as you're quite aware, for particularly probably more grades 5 through 12, artificial intelligence. And it's good, you know, yeah, there's the good and the messy part, but the good is for teachers and to help teachers quickly, help with lesson planning or forming questions. And we're really giving time for teachers at the middle and high school level to what we call play with AI. There are 3 specific AI platforms that have signed the data privacy agreement. One in particular has a contract with the state of New Hampshire, that's Conmigo. We've already reached out to them, myself and Debbie Sigmund, our tech coordinator, several days ago, so we're waiting to hear back from them. Because what we're finding is, yes, they're free, and it's Magic School is one, Brisk and Conmigo. They're free, but you know, the bells and whistles are not free, and we want the bells and whistles, of course. So we're looking into that, but we certainly, it's enough for our teachers to really play with kind of a plan in mind. That work is happening in the morning. They're going to work by department and or team or grade level. Then they'll work with Jonathan Vanderels and Ann Hadwin for their school growth plan from like 10 to 12:15, lunch. And then they get back to their AI research and seeing how it can help them. And we're really opening it up to, if you want your focus to be, how can AI help me as a teacher? Or maybe you want to look into how can AI help my students? How do I help my students understand the good behind artificial intelligence? Because we know our kids are accessing it. So let's embrace that, but let's use that for good and how it can help us as learners. And then Andy's going to end the day with a whole big group where each department, grade level, or department really, will just kind of share out maybe a particular AI tool that they really researched and used and found helpful so that other colleagues can say, oh, I want to talk to that group and see what they learned about that. So just a really fun day of learning. And now I'm going to introduce the counselors, unless you have any questions.
Can I just, are you good technologically wise? Did Kareem sort that out? Okay, good. All right.
Is there anything else in your
No, I'm
report?
good. I'm good. So go ahead and introduce.
Yeah, so really excited to
sorry.
have our counselors.
Oh, Patty, one second.
Got a question.
Oh, yeah, you have a question.
Yeah, I guess I'm interested in the direction, I mean, 2 years ago, teachers are sending out emails to parents going, we caught your kid using AI, they're going to fail.
So, yeah.
There's something very incongruent about the level of excitement I'm sensing here.
Well, 2 years ago, we didn't have data privacy agreements. It was 2 years ago, we didn't have companies coming out saying, we want to help you because we recognize what students are doing outside of school. So let's build platforms that we're not giving kids answers right away. In fact, we're giving them questions. I see you're looking for this. Do you know X? Or we recommend you. So it's very much a learning platform. In fact, I have, and I'm happy to send it. I don't know if you saw maybe a month ago, 60 Minutes had one of their segments on AI, and actually it was Come and Go. And they had a whole segment on a high school, I think it was a chemistry teacher, and interviewed the chemistry teacher of like how she planned her lessons using the AI tool, but then how students directly were engaged in an experiment and how they were using AI, not to give them the answers, but to help lead them. We all know with the internet, you can go down a vortex hole pretty quickly. And we know with our kids, that's incredibly overwhelming. One, the volume of text that they're sent to find, to research and whatnot. And if we can teach our kids to ask questions to help direct them find research to read that, that's a good thing. And so it's all in the guise of asking questions to students rather than supplying the answer to them. I don't know if that helps or not. So it's shifted. These three particular platforms are educational platforms of AI.
All right. I guess I just want to understand it. I mean, available to be convinced, but skeptical.
Yeah, that's why at this point, this is a day for our educators to what we call play, for them to learn more about it. Because when I look at their time in the day, what they have to even learn more about, that's what this day is centered on. And then, Todd and I talked earlier too, and actually Jason Carey talking about not many districts, from Jason's research anyway, around the state have policies. However, there are procedures in place centered around AI that are in student handbooks. So as we need to know it first a little bit more as educators, then we can start to write what would that look like in our student handbooks. And then how do we communicate that? How do we write that, get feedback from teachers, and then bring to the board for something that perhaps down the road that we would put in a...
Well, I think, your trepidation, Dan, is well-founded. I mean, a couple of years ago, AI was very, very new to our educators. And I think that in many cases, the natural reaction is, no, resist. And I think at some point over the last couple of years, it has become clear that this is a tool that we need to figure out how it's going to impact, not resist, but figure it out, and then use it in ways that are positive and not use it in ways that are negative.
Exactly.
And I think that's the challenge. And I think this is like the first
time
that we've had this
really
dialogue.
Giving educators time to really sort through and figure this out. But to have a tool that can give feedback to a student so quickly is really amazing on their writing.
And I don't know about Magic School in Brisk, but Khan Migo comes from, it's an offshoot from Khan Academy.
Yeah.
So it's already a educational platform that is, offshooting versus an AI platform that is marketing to educators.
Right, this isn't like, here, I'm gonna write the paper for you. That's not what this is. That 60 minutes, I'll share the link with you. It was so eye-opening for me because the focus was Conmigo, and they introduced that they are interviewed.
And I think Brisk is
developers.
solely for teacher. I think that's like more.
Brisk is more teacher-centered. Yeah,
Yeah.
some of these are more teacher-centered rather than student-centered. And you're right, Conmigo is more student. There is the teacher element to help with planning, but there is more of a student element to help students.
I mean, just as long as we're vetting it, it's wonderful if it can provide them some instantaneous feedback, but if, like some of the other large language models, the thing starts hallucinating about Genghis Khan discovering America, that's a problem.
There's always a
So-
human element that needs to be there, right? You know, even with self-driving cars. Still
But I can tell you in the post-secondary world, there's a big market for vendors about how can vendors help bring AI
Yeah.
to post-secondary learning. It totally makes sense we're doing it in K-12. The world is going,
The world is changing.
if we tried to
don't-
teach as if there was no AI, like it was 2000, we're pretending the internet didn't exist. That's just like
So it's more, how can we be in front of it? How can we embrace it? And how do we use it for good and be responsible stewards, right? Of having safety nets in place for our students.
And there are proprietary LLMs out there that don't allow, right? The hallucinations comes when you're pulling from the whole internet that have very limited data sets, big enough to create predictive modeling, but limited so it doesn't get Genghis Khan.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
suspect you're still going to have the challenge of kids using, I hate to use the word AI because it's not really AI, but sorry, using machine learning in venues that are outside of the school's purview and returning that. And how do you detect it? And how do you teach them to use those tools
Right.
in a productive way?
Yeah.
But I think so many teachers, even on the elementary level, they're leaning away from, even in 5th grade, you do all this history, social studies work, and no longer is it write a research paper because anybody can, Google Slides will do it for you. It's more like
Authentic.
the project base
Yeah.
and the come up with a question that hasn't been asked in this. It's just kind of taking a different direction. In the same way, I feel like that we took a different direction when we were learning remotely or starting Google Classroom, which are things that most teachers couldn't do without.
Exactly.
You see a lot less of the very easily plagiarized or very easily chat GPT'd. Write a summary, write a research
That makes
paper.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I apologize for dragging the conversation down this rabbit hole, but I mean, to my mind, among the many other valuable things we can teach, I mean, there really needs to be a concerted effort to teach the teachers and the kids
Right.
what these models are
Right.
and also what they aren't.
Right.
Large
And
language
that's what
model
Friday is, yeah.
at its basic level, it's an enormously complex probabilistic engine. And it is going to make inferences based on probability, just like 3 months ago they were saying this winter was going to be 20% warmer than normal. Not warmer than normal outside,
Winter's
so,
not over yet.
Yeah.
well, you're right. But the point, just the really critical thing is, everybody involved, teachers, kids, and otherwise, need to understand what this technology is and what it is not.
Yeah, and Debbie Sigmund has created a wonderful presentation. She kicks off the morning from 7:30 to 8 a.m. with introducing these 3 platforms. And she actually even made a whole, columns of here's where it's teacher-centered, here's where it's student-centered, here's what the focus is here, here's the focus for this platform. So teachers can kind of look at that first and then sit back and say, okay, I'm really interested in this. I want to learn more about this for myself.
Yeah, we probably should move along. We have a
Yep.
bunch of great
Okay, so to
folks
introduce
who are
counselors.
staying way past their normal day.
Probability
Yes.
engine, I think is improbability engine from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
It's both.
Ladies, and baby boy. If he starts crying, we're all running home. But, thanks for your time this evening. I know we've been able to come in once a year to try to give you all updates about what's going on in the counseling office. And we certainly had a number of changes over the last 3 years, not only personnel, but in just how we're managing the department to benefit the students, and the goal's always been the same before she's been here the longest as our school psychologist, as longest one. We say that she's our stepchild because we share her often with the special ed. So she has joint custody. She may have joint custody, yes, for sure. 50-50, well, some days it's not 50-50, right? But it's always been the same goal. Our goal is what we're trying to do what's best for the kids. And that, as we've just heard, is shifted so much. So as that has shifted, we have tried to shift what we're doing to make sure that families are involved and the kids know that we care. We have different methods that have been telling us that it's working. Liv will probably tell you she got to know us really well this year, right? But maybe not freshman, sophomore year. Yeah, we probably did bribe with snacks at one point, so I initially opened our doors more, but just to appear maybe as a friendly place and not a place just to go where if you have a problem. Like we're trying to make sure that the kids understand all of our roles. So these are all of our Leslie faces. We are all the staff that have been here for at least 1 year. My role has changed. This is the third time in 4 years that my role has changed, but I'm still here. I'm still standing. It's all good. The only person not represented tonight is Tamara Rulo, our middle school counselor, and she had family commitment, but the rest of the ladies are here this evening. And then 2 new faces. We have Martho here on the end. Sam really was replacing, she's running the job. Thank you. I'm like, okay, like Kathy Alderaji reimagined. How we like to say.
And it's not Sam's first time with us.
No.
Sam was an intern with me while she was getting her MSW. She interned with the school district. So
Yeah,
just snag it back.
And Sam is a parent in the district as well, so she has children at the elementary school. And then Leslie Robillard has joined us as a high school counselor. Both of them really made significant differences amongst the kids and the staff too. And we certainly have a rock star team here, so we're feeling pretty good about really what's going to show for you that you'll read somewhere down the line is that a lot of the impact you'll see within the NEASC report too, and a lot of what the kids had to say was what I heard from Steve Beals, who ran the NEASC committee, was you're not even in this, you guys are not anywhere near the same place you were 2 years ago. 2 years ago, the kids probably didn't know who any of you were, and I'm not just saying us, but school-wide, and now they all can identify multiple trusted adults in the building. They know who to go to. They know we're not just the sad place, we can be the happy place too. And so that data will definitely speak for itself too. But we have been using different tools to measure our program over the last few years, and we continue to look at these tools to make sure, are we using our time wisely? We use anything from senior survey every year. Before they can get that cap and gown, they have to complete a senior survey. Caitlin will talk a little bit about Wellness Day, and Amanda, they put on Wellness Day for years. We'll talk a little bit about that. Caitlin and Laura can talk to you about the community needs survey that they've done. There was a staff needs survey done, trusted adult activity that was done with the kids, and then obviously we're asking questions all the time. So students like Liv or Grady pop in, you can say, hey, did this work for you? No, that was terrible. Okay, thanks Liv, let's move on. How can we fix that? So we can always expect some nice input. I know that it's hard to quantify a lot of what we do because a lot of kids will just pop in and out quickly, and we love to say that we all have a deli line outside of our office because it does feel like the deli line some days. But so I'm showing you data from 23-24. We had 1,237 unscheduled sessions with students in crisis or who requested to see us about a concern. We held 504 meetings were coordinated. These numbers are specific to the junior-senior high school. The elementary school folks will talk about a little bit of their data as well. In 23-24, there were 19 students in the building who could not identify a trusted adult. And then it changed, that number dropped. This year, there were 11 students. So to see that kind of impact, absolutely, Todd, please.
Yeah, so the way that the whole trusted adult thing is that we do the suicide prevention training through Connors Climb every year. And as part of that, after each training, we have a Google form that is a screener that the kids fill out. And one of the questions we ask is, who is a trusted adult for you in the building? And we also ask if they have one outside of the building, a parent, a family friend, something like that. And, so in the building, who is someone that you can go to if you are really struggling? Because that's all part of the suicide prevention piece. And so our kids fill this out, and they put the names of their trusted adult, and it's really exciting. Caitlin sends out an email to to everyone who was named as a trusted adult, saying, "Congratulations, you're a trusted adult in this building." So the teachers and staff in general.
I didn't get an email.
I trust you. I trust you.
And so that also kind of helps staff it gives you a little boost to know that, oh, good, I am making connections and making a difference, and what I'm doing every day is really making an impact. And so it was really exciting for us to see that there was a drop. This is the kind of drop we like from last year to this year of kids who didn't feel like they had a trusted adult yet. And then what we do after that is we kind of play matchmaker throughout the year, and because we take a list of the kids who didn't have a trusted adult in the building, and we try and basically match them up with staff that could be that person for them, whether it's their advisor or
Big brother candidate here if you need.
There we go. There we go. We're
Give me those 11 names.
Yeah. We still got some kids. And so that's what we do throughout the year, and hopefully next year that number will be even lower.
So there's definitely a lot of data there that I know that this presentation's been shared with you too. A number of college reps that have visited us, the number of students served in small groups. That number is really kind of not even accurate because for whatever reason, our building has become a second lunchroom for many students to just come and want to eat lunch with us.
So those are the official like counseling groups, and then we have sort of the more informal lunch bunch
groups. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's nice because those kids, they come in because they do recognize us as being a safe space, and they want to bring their friends with them to this space, and so that's very exciting.
It's building those relationships early.
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
context, yeah, it's so important.
I'm just curious, my high school experience, granted in the 1980s, but as I talk to my kids and some of the others, it is wild and I think encouraging. I don't fully know how to put it in context. How many kids in this building don't eat lunch in this room? They're either in the library or in the counseling department, or everybody sort of takes that time to go find a place where they're comfortable, which is, I mean, kind of wild to me. Certainly nothing I think would happen at the elementary school because that would be chaos, but I don't know. I just thought it was interesting.
A little bit more up here to have that little bit of freedom.
It's true. And talking with Andy about that next year, we were saying, you can have one high school lunch because they scatter wherever. They don't necessarily stay here in this space for whatever reason, even though it's a small lunch. It can be anxiety provoking for kids. We definitely have a group of middle schoolers that we'll allow to come in a couple of times a week, but we don't want to eliminate this space from them completely, because then you're just taking the problem away. You're not teaching them how to manage that anxious feeling. But yeah, it is. It's nice. It's a nice.
I think it's nice.
Yeah.
Again, my context is bad. If we'd done that, get your hind end back in that lunchroom.
Yeah. Wish they take the garbage back to the lunchroom. So I know there's a lot of data there, there's a lot of people to talk, but that, absolutely you have this presentation too. But so there's definitely a good story to tell within that data as well, too.
That's the elementary counseling by numbers. Ours looks a little different. Obviously, there's only 2 of us, so we have a smaller counseling team. So this just kind of looks at like a brief overview of what we've done last year. So this is again 23, 24. Together we had documented over 1,400 student contacts. That's including crisis calls, individual counseling sessions, things like that. 24 lunch groups weekly. We offer more. If you looked at our numbers, we probably offer.
Yeah, I mean, there's 5 lunch times a day times, so we could potentially have more, but on average we do 24. And those are predictable groups. Those are groups that we see on a weekly basis.
Yep. So sometimes we'll get called in for an intervention for like a friend crisis, a lot of friendship crisis down in those age groups. So we'll invite kids in and do lunch groups to kind of help intervene with that. We are working at covering every single grade level for SEL lessons. That looks different for every grade. We use different
Curriculums.
Yeah, different curriculums.
Depending on the age. So we're trying to get into every classroom this year.
We pretty much did last year too. And it's a good feeling. I mean, the kids see you in the hallway and they're like, this is Amber. Like, they love seeing us. So that makes it really fun. Again, over 75 IEP and MTSS meetings. So we're attending those, especially if we're going to be added as a service or just give our input. And then Ms. Keen runs all the 504 meetings.
Yeah, so last year we had 28 504 meetings.
And each one of those meetings must be at least an hour
Oh,
of your time. So,
We
and the
try to
fact that
keep
you
them
guys
to
do that on top of everything
We
else.
try to keep them to 45 minutes, but they sometimes go an hour. We cut it off at an hour here.
Yeah.
And they're very flexible, especially if you have teacher parents.
Zoom still works.
We're busy.
Jody, can I ask you a question on the previous slide, the 237 unscheduled sessions? I'm just curious, you say they're in crisis. Could you kind of categorize like the type of crisis? Like, I mean, because it's like almost 7 kids a day, if you break it down, right?
It runs the gamut from, oh my gosh, I forgot, like I have soccer right after school and I forgot my bag at home, I don't know what I'm gonna do, I'm
Okay.
freaking out, I can't go to class right now, to, my mom was arrested last night. So
Okay.
it really does run
So
the
it
gamut.
varies from,
And
se-
that number
severity.
encompasses all of those kinds of things and
Mhm.
things in between. Again, like we do have quite a few friendship issues. I don't know if you've ever met a 7th grader.
yeah?
We use
I bet.
the term friend-tervention enough times because the opportunities arise.
Right, yeah.
And a 6th grade crisis is very different from a 12th grade crisis as well.
Okay,
While we categorize those as crises, I don't know that they don't always rise to the level of a crisis.
right.
It's a crisis to
But in
the
their
child.
mind,
Yeah,
yeah,
in our
yeah,
ASTA
right.
model, that's where those interventions fall.
Now, how do you guys handle it elementary? You have more of these crises, and there's only 2 years, so it kind of doesn't,
So that's
and it's the same number of kids. If you divide the elementary from the middle school, high school, it's the same numbers, right? About 500-ish.
These
Similar.
are just unscheduled and there's but included, ours included a lot of scheduled, so
But
that
also, our
includes.
crises can look a little bit different, especially before this year. A crisis can even be a student that is misbehaving in a classroom and has to be removed, who's being physically unsafe. This year, thank you, we have more behavior support, so that's been amazing and has reduced the amount of times we have to go support a student who's hitting and kicking and scratching. But those, for us, a crisis can also be a student is having a behavior in a classroom and we need to help them get out of the classroom and de-escalate. So, I mean, that's a great question, but we make it work. And our assistant principals are amazing at supporting us too. Like, we're not the only ones in the building responding to all the crises.
Okay.
And even in the junior, senior high school, Leslie and I are, we are dubbed high school counselors, but a 6th grader walks in and Tamara Rulo's busy. We're not going to say, well, you're 6th grade, go away. And the same as these guys are jumping in at any age level too. So we're not, it's kind of like how we're splitting, well, we have our own alphabet this year. Okay, sorry, you're B, go away. You take whoever comes in and needs at the time too. So it's just amazingly good teamwork, which is great. So some of the changes that we've incorporated over the last couple of years. So Leslie and I had one-to-one senior meetings back in the month of January to make sure that we knew every single student of January. Now I don't even know what month we're in right now. Sorry.
It's past your bedtime.
It's Snoofed. I have so much Snoofed. My sister was like, what day is it? Okay. Back in September, we met with each of our seniors, and we started keeping a tracking document that we shared with these folks as well as the admin team so that we know every single person's plan. Whether they're taking a gap year, going out and work, we have those conversations, we follow up with them, we make sure that those things have continued. So we've had plenty of one-on-ones, right, Liv? Yes. We do have the course selection fair coming up on February 6th. So again, we're going to run it slightly differently this year where rather than having it in the entryway, event entrance, we're going to use the space here as well as out in the hallway where kids can go through during broken down by advisories to talk to the teachers about, hey, what the heck is journalism really about? What's creative writing? Where do you think I should be taking? So that's going to happen again too. Again, I just mentioned we have alpha split at the high school 3 times a year. Leslie and I are doing credit checks for juniors and seniors to make sure everybody's on track. Starting the week of January 27th, we're having one-on-one junior meetings to help them plan for senior year classes as well as talk about post-high school options. So those have been scheduled. We also have a presentation next Tuesday afternoon to the junior class as a whole. That does explain different options available to them post-high school. We've already been working with the kids and the younger grades about course selection as well. Yesterday we started going into 9th grade working on 3-year planners, so it's not a mystery what they're taking. So that's been all like really personalized for each of the kids in that sense too. Advisory council is something that Laura and Caitlin can talk to you a little bit more about in the community survey. They've done a great job connecting different community organizations into the school as well. We started a Facebook page where we put all kinds of information on that. And then, freshman seminar was super helpful this year. We went in 5 times and just sat with the kids and were able to talk through different topics with the kids and really get to know them too. So that was really great too. And you guys can certainly talk about some of the awesome stuff that you've done as well in there too. But
and that was a really nice opportunity because everyone in the department went in at the beginning of the year to introduce ourselves to all the freshmen. And a lot of them knew us already, but not all of them know who the school psychologist is because they don't need to necessarily interact with me. And we always have new kids coming in, and so that was a really nice opportunity for us to go there and introduce ourselves.
And we kind of explained some of the differences between middle and high school, like what is a credit, why do I need to care about credits, and all of those things that they really need to be aware of entering high school.
So this is just,
Sorry.
okay, so this is just sort of a snapshot of what we might do on any given day. Part of why I love my job so much is that it's different every day. And there's some predictability, but there's a whole lot of unpredictability. So this doesn't encompass everything we do, but it's a lot of what we do. So like we already spoke about, we do classroom lessons at each grade level. And the examples are just different curriculums that we're using at different levels, age levels. At crisis intervention, we were talking about those sort of the unplanned things that kids need support with. We attend open house nights and parent nights,
Which we have a fun parent night coming up, we'll tell you about it.
We do some individual counseling. We have probably between the 2 of us about a dozen IEP counseling kiddos, kids who have IEP or counseling goals in their IEPs. And those are weekly. Those individual counseling and IEP counseling are usually weekly, predictable groups. Lunch groups, we do a lot of social skills and coping skills in lunch groups. Those are also weekly for each group or student. We do a whole lot of classroom teacher consults for behavior stuff, data tracking. Sometimes that's planned, sometimes it's on the fly. Laura does an awesome write-up in our NES newsletter each month. As you know, we have themes in the whole district, and so Laura's newsletter focuses on the theme for that month, but we also change a bulletin board, a counseling bulletin board every month so that it represents the theme. Sean and Erin have helped start assemblies this year where we present the theme and talk about the themes.
We have students of the month based on that, and the kids are loving that. They're getting rewarded for being like empathetic. So that was our theme last month. This month is perseverance. And they get to stand up in front of the whole school, and they're being like applauded and rewarded.
And we didn't initiate that. We have to give credit. Kristen Lanigan and Amanda Grant initiated the Student of the Month. But I think the kids are enjoying it for the most part. It's fun. And it's based on the theme, like Laura said. We collaborate with Seacoast Mental Health is in our buildings. Both schools have that, where they use our space to work with students who otherwise couldn't get to therapy outside of school. So we collaborate with parents, teachers, staff, and administration. Again, sometimes that's planned, sometimes it's on the fly. We are on building and district level MTSS leadership teams. We collaborate with Haven. We are having them now in grade first, 1, 3, and 5. We used to just only do first grade. Now we're trying to keep up with the middle school and high school and having them in more grades.
Could you explain what Haven is?
Yeah.
Do you want me to do it?
Yeah, you're just
So-
really good.
Haven is our sexual assault prevention and awareness.
A lot of body
resource,
safety,
a lot
yeah.
of body safety things in the elementary school. In the middle school, it's more like healthy relationships. You can say no, what's consent. And in high school, it's just more of the same, but at like a higher level.
So it's a community resource for adults, but they have an education department where they come into schools and do age-appropriate presentations. And like it was saying, at our school, it's all personal body safety. So if you've had a kiddo go through our school, all the first graders have gotten it for years and years, as long as I've been there, and now we're doing 3rd and 5th. And then, yeah, the topics. What? Yeah, they have like these huge puppets. And
Kids love them.
Parents do have to give permission for the presentation.
Yeah.
But they're very age-appropriate. They're really good. Yeah.
Are they same nurses that come in, or who does the collaboration with you when they come in?
It's not the nurses, they're typically.
It's employees by Haven.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
But they're
that
in
one
their
of them is a
education
social
department.
worker, and I can't remember what the other ones are, but they're mental health background,
Oh,
mental
okay.
health professionals.
And their role within Haven is to go, like, that's their whole role, is to go into schools.
And advocacy.
I could see having the older grade levels, rehabbing the collaboration or the presentation with them is probably a lot more useful because first graders, I don't know if I remember anything from first grade, but I'm not even sure I had a first grade.
Oh, but my first grader can tell me exactly who got the Student of the Month. And every grade, who got it last month. You're just waiting.
Yeah. Again, juniors.
Yeah, so what we've been doing at the junior, senior high school, again, continue the Haven, they get 6th through 11th grade every single year, they're seeing something. There's an I'm a Senior Now at presentation. We let the 9th graders know what does a high school counselor do, what does a social worker do, what does a school psychologist do. That's probably the first time that they realize that Amanda and I have different roles than everybody else, because they're like, hey teacher, we'll get there. 9th grade is when we start to really get there. We go into every classroom in the middle school and introduce ourselves. Again, what our roles are, how can we help you, what's an appropriate time to get in there. Financial aid night, we do suicide prevention lessons in grades 6 through 12, and those are supported by a classroom teacher and one of the people from our counseling staff, so that's been going really great. College rep visits, we have the military visits at least once a month. They set up outside the cafeteria, and the kids love it. The middle schoolers probably more than the high schoolers. They have them doing like push-up competitions and stuff, and that's been going great. I think we have 5 students signing up for the Air Force this year from our senior class. It's like, it's been successful. And we had our Apply New Hampshire Day, again, another huge success. They applied to a bunch of schools in New Hampshire for free. Some of them heard back immediately with acceptances. It's been amazing. We've been doing new student breakfasts in the middle school and high school, and that we started that last year, and it's just been great. And the new thing, since we started last year, is that we have a returning student come in to the new student breakfast and be like, hey, listen, I was the new kid last year. This is what it's like. And that's been wildly successful this year, because it's just like, and on top of knowing you're not the only new kid, which I can only imagine being the new kid in middle school, like, brutal. So having those connections has been great. Laura and I have done the Newmarket Community Needs Questionnaire. We do a quarterly middle school counseling newsletter. Tamara and I collaborate on that. PSAT training, and then the quarterly newsletter for the high school has been going on for years. Oh, that's me again. So I did a quick little time study for December 2024. I tried my best to get everything on there. I just used a Google form to see, like, what am I actually doing?
Other than running around.
Right, yes. So I was just happy to see that 46% of my time is spent counseling. The other things that I do, phone calls, voicemail, emails, home visits. Luckily for December, there was only one suicide assessment, but that is typically a big part of my job as a district suicide prevention coordinator. Home visits, groups and meetings, but the big part is one-on-one counseling with kids, and I love that.
And Kayla's a trendsetter, because when she showed us that she does this,
Now we all
were,
want to do it.
yeah, now we've started doing it. Yeah.
The time usage for
Okay, I'll take a nerd, that's fine.
It's all right.
I tried to be as cool as Caitlin. I don't have a table or a graph, but I do keep pretty good data of what I'm doing, just so I know, and if anyone ever asks me what I'm doing with my time, I can answer them. So last year alone, I saw 700 individual kids. That includes my planned counseling and crisis. I would say that 100 number of parent contacts is relatively low compared to what it actually was. And again, even at the elementary school level, we are doing risk and suicide assessments for self-harm. A lot of work with DCYF down there.
30 plus, wow.
Yeah, over 30 plus contacts. And that, I would say this year I'm creeping up on that already. And then again, those
That's
meetings,
alarming.
100 meetings with parents, a lot of outpatient service providers, a lot of community outreach. And typically with the home visits, Caitlin and I will do those together, just we don't need to go alone anywhere. If I'm going to go anywhere, the SROs are really great in coming with us as well to support them.
So,
Yes, always have a buddy.
So I happen to have a school counselor who I live with and I'm married to. And she'll talk to me a little bit about, like, oh, I had to contact DCYF for this or for that.
Yeah.
And they're not usually small items, so I guess I'm a little shocked and concerned that you're almost at 30 already.
Some of it's just like collaboration. A couple families will work with DCYF voluntarily, and it's coordination. And I document like every time I talk to them, whether it's an open
Whether
case.
it's the same case
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
okay,
I would
okay.
say that probably was like 15 reports, but
Okay.
again, it's collaborating
Yeah.
afterwards.
And one of the things that I've learned over the last couple of years, thanks to these ladies, is like it's very hard in New Hampshire for kids to get certain levels of outside service without going through DCYF. So sometimes it's not, we think of calling DCYF like, oh, there's neglect or abuse or something, but sometimes it's simply that they need to be involved in order to help the child and help support the family.
Gotcha.
We used to have the CHINs.
Yeah.
The CHINs process was great for that, because it always would get support systems through the CHINs. However, obviously that's gone away in the last 10 years, so, yeah, now DCYF seems to had to take that on as well. Yeah.
Yeah, to your point, Amanda, there's a lot to do with attendance and truancy. You do have to report.
So this takes a look, just like a quick Caitlin and I send out our community needs survey every year now, 2 years running, to see what the community thinks our deficits are, like what we need in the community. And these are the top 5 things that came up this year. Mental health was number 1 both years in a row, right? Yep. And then again, you can see housing, food insecurity, clothing, and parenting support. So what we're doing to address that here is, again, if we look at our Seacoast mental health providers, all of us counselors providing mental health support at school. Even with housing, when we have someone who becomes homeless in the area, we connect them to appropriate resources. We follow the McKinney-Vento laws. Food insecurity, we're connecting them, again, to the pantry, to community church, 68 hours of hunger.
Do we share that data with the town? Because we've talked about the need for a better social work program than the suggestion box that we have now is our.
We
You guys
meet
actually,
with the town,
right.
like basically quarterly. So we're meeting with the rec, town welfare, the library, the community churches. Who else is on that?
The housing authority.
And that was something you guys initiated to start
great.
that
Yeah.
community sharing
We do
and
a
talking, yeah.
That's
With
great.
them every 3 months. I won't be there for the next.
Why is that?
Really?
Uh-oh.
So yeah, we meet with them quarterly because we recognize that there was kind of this disconnect, like everyone's kind of going in the same direction, but we're all coming from different boats. So we all jumped in the same boat and now we're all in the same direction. We're able to coordinate services for the families and the community a lot easier. And it's nice because it's not a one-way street where like they're just helping us. Like one of the people reached out to me and they're like, I know this is not your bag at all, but like stuff with seniors, how can I help? And I was like, I actually know that because of these meetings that we've been having, so I got you. Lamprey joins us as well.
Yeah. And we brought in, like this year, we brought in the Rotary Club. They were really excited to jump on board with us. So it helps us like with Christmas and holidays and things that families need. It's really fun.
That's another thing we've talked about is, I feel like you know, we're talking, sorry, is getting to the community and parents before they even get their kids in school to start, you know, giving them the support so that by the time you get to school, it's easier for you folks.
Yeah.
Are there any parental support groups like in town?
Not in town. I know
No, but
families.
we're connected with like Families First. Austin 17 House has one for families struggling with either substance use or mental health problems within their children. There's one with out of Seacoast Youth Services in Seabrook, but there's nothing like in town.
And then we're hosting next week. I know it's not like a parenting support group, but next Wednesday we're actually having a huge like how technology's impacted kids, and so we're trying to get parents together in the community. We're actually doing a 3-night series with these kids, so to talk about technology with the kids, and then with the parents, about their kids' use with technology, because I think it's a struggle for a lot of parents. And that was one of the things when we sent out, like, parents are struggling with that. And we're seeing that in school, too. We're seeing the mental health impact. Kids up till 2 in the morning, like, I was on my iPad last night till 2 in the morning.
I was messaging my friends at 3 when I
Yeah.
go to sleep.
Yeah, so like that kind of stuff. So we're trying to find ways to support parents and bring them together here, too, so they know they're not alone and there's education around what they're going through. Yep, so that's actually, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but the event is next Wednesday at 6 o'clock.
6 p.m.
Here,
Seacoast
here.
Mental Health will be here for that one. It's like a forum kind of situation. So their director of youth services is coming in to moderate the event, and we have like questions, there's a Q&A period, and then
Isn't there food involved?
Dinner, I was going to say, I RSVP'd, I was like, oh, dinner.
Real sell, yeah.
There's still time to RSVP.
Yeah, that's right.
Who's watching this?
So along those lines, we also asked our school staff what they are seeing here, like the needs for the students in their classrooms. And it was really cool that it lined up like almost exactly what the teachers are seeing is what the families are feeling as their needs. Obviously mental health being the number one, the parenting support, again, like Laura was saying, how do we get these phones out of these kids' hands? Tough. And we agree, because we can't get them out of their hands sometimes here in school, so we get it. Food insecurity, again, like Jody was saying at the beginning, we do provide them with
snacks to come down to the counseling office, and then we can kind of talk about some of these things. Clothing, we're continuing to do our thrift shop kind of clothing drive this year, and we're hoping to finally get one set up permanently at the junior high school. We have a space. We're moving things around so that we can set up a permanent place where kids can get, clothes, access to basic toiletries and stuff, and some of those school supplies.
They try to help with
That's the last slide, so don't
Yeah,
don't worry about it.
They're done. It's over.
I'll read it to everybody.
I've been getting this message for 2 weeks now, and I haven't had time to put it in help tickets.
You just did.
So it's interesting, I'm sorry, okay. It's interesting to me that like the parents, housing is their number 2 concern, not even on like the teachers list. So like there's some like how aware teachers might be, right? Like, which I recognize there's probably some privacy issues there and everything, right? But the challenges students are having outside of the classroom and how that might impact inside, whereas parents don't have school supplies on there. And I don't know if maybe they just didn't come on because housing was on there, but like teachers are seeing like, hey, there's school supply challenges here. Like how much this information gets sent like back and forth, like teachers hearing like, hey, parents are concerned about this, and parents hearing like, hey, teachers are concerned about this. That's something that happens?
I think that we shared this survey last year. Last year we didn't separate out parents and teachers though, so that was something that we figured out about this year, like to kind of see like what's similar and what's different. I think that that's a great point, and we haven't shared this with staff yet. So I think that that's a great point to point out like there are bigger fish to fry here.
Yeah.
It sounds like parents are overwhelmed by like the big stuff, where teachers are
Right.
only seeing
Right.
How it manifests in the classroom,
Yeah.
which makes sense. It's really where they
Teachers
are.
will reach out to us for like certain supplies or clothing or things like that, and we're happy to help give the kids what they need. Parents are, like we said, doing bigger fish. And like the rent has gone up, things like that, so they're seeing a lot of that.
I'm glad, I guess, to hear that we talk to the town with some regularity about the services and support they have. I mean, this is less as a school board member and more as just someone who lives here. We see all of these problems through the lens of the kids who are in our school system, but I'm not guessing most of these problems weren't there before the kids enrolled in school, or that they magically go away when the kids graduate either. I don't know, and this is really outside the scope of a school board comment, but I worry that so much of what the town is doing for people with these issues is channeled through the school district, and there's probably a lot of needs outside of that are nobody's really fully cognizant of or doing much about.
What we're doing is connecting the parents to appropriate resources so they don't necessarily need us once they're done with school. I would plug as town social worker all day. Yeah. Outside of the realm.
Yeah, and I think
Your point, though, I think if you look across the state, across the country, anything to do with kids is largely connected to a school, and it's expected that somehow the school is going to figure it out. And I think in this day and age, where we've heard the description of some of the behavioral challenges, the mental health challenges kids have, more and more of those things are in the schools that we have to figure out a way to manage. And I think obviously it connects to families, but it's about trying to create an environment in your community where kids can learn and then families can access supports. I mean, it's not just a Newmarket thing. I think we're very fortunate that we have the wonderful, caring staff that we have that works with our kids. But there are a lot of communities where that's not the case. And I think having the social workers in our schools, I think that's an incredibly important thing to be able to do, because it is that teacher noticing the kid doesn't have school supplies, and that kind of trickles down to, oh, wait a minute, there's a bigger issue here. It's not just they didn't have colored pencils. It's
the tip of the iceberg.
Right. It's just, yeah. And I think it's important that people are watching that and doing that. I think
It prompts us to reach out.
Yeah.
So.
And to your point, Todd, it's almost abnormal for a school district to have such a well-staffed counseling department, but we see the benefit of that every day. Like the fact that we even have social workers in the district at all, much less full-time, one in each building. Having a full-time school psychologist in each building really helps us get to know the kids and the families and be able to make those connections and just help them throughout their
Absolutely.
whole educational career. So we're definitely seeing the benefit of.
And I would also add, one of the things that I'm incredibly, Jody joked about her third job in 3 years. And it's true, she's seen a lot of.
You could go back to EOL, you could go back to.
A lot, but I think that's more symbolic of the department as a whole, kind of reflecting and figuring out what do our students need and adjusting and adapting to meet those needs. I mean, you made reference to the behavioral program we created. I mean, all of those things are where we're actively looking at what our kids need, and we're trying to make sure we do that, and it requires great people like you to do that. So thank you for doing it.
And I really think the people in the community, the taxpayers need to realize it's so much cheaper to get a good team in and deal with kids early and get services and interventions in place so they can learn than it is to have them be more disruptive and need support longer in life.
That's well said.
Thank you all
very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Please stay warm, Katie.
Yeah.
All right, Andy Korman is up next. I'm sorry you have such a tough act to follow, but we have the program of studies presentation.
You could have gone first too. No.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello. I have before you tonight a proposed 25-26 high school program of studies. I kind of outlined in the memo. We generally start this process, it's kind of like budget for you guys. It's one of those things that just never ends, just constantly on our minds. We started in November having some of those conversations administratively, going to department heads asking for new courses. We evaluate the recommendations based on availability and long-term viability of a course. I eventually make the final decision on what we decide to add and retire. So before you tonight, we had the addition of 4 new courses. Intro to Theater, which I can tell you already is going to probably be our second most popular request. This space at about 3:30 houses about 120 kids from 6 through 12 doing theater all day long. And it seemed almost natural to have as a course offering. Beginning band, history of rock and roll, and then a dual enrollment course through SNHU for college comp. You can see what we're retiring there, a lot of secondary level stuff that has run into issues with request or just simply staff capacity. And we always do a edit of the descriptions. Are we teaching what we say we're teaching? Does it make sense? Does some of the nomenclature make sense? And the other last piece is we try to look at courses that compete against themselves. We've run into this situation before where you're going to run an AP environmental course and an environmental science course. You're competing against yourself. It's the same kid. You're stretching them across. So we try to find courses that are, in the language I use, is that competing against itself and put them in alternating years. So you're not having to make a decision every single year. Do I want to run CAD or architectural drawing? There's 10 kids, 5 in each. You just be upfront with kids, working with the counseling department, saying, hey, here's the schedule of when they'll be offered, even year, odd year. That model in my past has been very effective at keeping course offerings robust while also maintaining the reality of small school and staff capacity issues. One of the other changes we're making beyond just the courses we're offering is being far more selective with what our expectations are for our freshmen and sophomores. So currently freshmen and sophomores have the ability to choose just about anything they want from from the program of studies. It's a lot of courses that have no prereqs, and what we found is we end up with kids taking courses out of sequence and not focusing in on what they actually need. We know historically by just about every high school data point, successful completion of 2 high school English courses in Algebra 1 by the end of your sophomore year are major indicators for post-secondary, for graduation, which obviously leads to post-secondary planning, and making sure that our kids, especially at that freshman level, have the necessary courses. So we are going to be more prescriptive in what our current 8th graders are going to be taking their freshman year. They'll still have some level of choice, but it will be markedly less. The positive side of that is the slide you will see from me next October when we do budget of average course sizes will be dramatically impacted by by prescribing freshmen and sophomores take at a much more directive level. We're expecting our course numbers, especially in those core content areas, to be more reflective of what we truly have here. And finally, on Tuesday, so since November, we realized, I realized pretty early on when we started to have the initial conversation when I came on board about the cut requirement here of 28.25 just being ridiculous and not getting kids to that threshold, and having a conversation with you all about the gradual step down. We realized pretty quickly that if you ran an 8-period day, which is essentially what we do, just over 2 days, 8 times 4 gets you to 32. If I only need 24 credits, I'm going to have my well-to-do juniors who have 24 credits going, what do I take senior year? This doesn't make sense. So we knew we needed to have a more aggressive approach to our scheduling. So since November, there's been a team meeting to talk about different scheduling options. We've batted around a lot of different ideas. There's some ground rules and non-negotiables around start time, SST, prescription type stuff that impacts us, that drives administrators nuts, and teachers got a kind of behind-the-scenes view of that. So on Tuesday, we're going to propose an alternative schedule for the 25-26 school year for the high school. Essentially, it's going to be a 7-period a day, Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. Wednesday and Thursday will be traditional block scheduling. So odd periods will meet on Wednesday in the long block, evening periods will meet on Thursday in the long block. This is a very similar feel to what we did with the middle school schedule. Some of the pros I'm going to pick right up on this is it's more instructional time for teachers in classrooms. It's going to be less prep time. We're reducing the overall schedule capacity by about 12.5%, 13%, going from 8 courses to 8 to 7. So we're going to have kids in courses more frequently. This is something that is, in my opinion, long overdue for a school this size. I think the block schedule is a big school solution to big school problems, and we're not a big school, and that's okay. But we got to come up with some alternatives. So that will go before staff on Tuesday. It's the recommendation out of the committee. They were pretty happy with it. I'm interested to see how the whole staff takes it, and we will make adjustments as needed from that. But that is kind of the overview. I do want to talk about 306s a little bit later on, maybe, but I'll take questions about schedule or program of study or anything like that.
I just wonder how we end up with 5 Spanish languages.
I have no idea. I just sort of
I'm wondering how we ended up with 5 Spanish language classes, 5 levels of Spanish.
Oh, that's a great question. So this year's 8th grade, in their spring of their 7th grade year, the backstory here is the UA teachers and the middle school kids were sick and tired of taking the same UAs year after year after year.
Sure.
And it was producing, predictably, behavior problems, especially with 8th graders in UAs. Mm-hmm. We identified that and said, this doesn't make sense, we're going to do something. I went to the UA teachers last year and said, 8th grade, we're not just going to do the same 45-day thing. Come up with something that is a semester-long 8th grade UA elective. And as part of that process, Erin Copeland, who teaches primarily middle school Spanish for us, said, I'd love to teach 8th graders Spanish 1. So we have a cohort of about 24 current 8th graders who are very successful right now in Spanish 1. So historically at the high school level, we see somewhere between a 15 and 18% reduction every year in the foreign language retention. Mm-hmm. By front-loading 20, I'm going to presume positive here, all 24 of those kids come out of Spanish 1 with A+, and they're ready to rock and roll. That 24 is going to end up in a cohort as Spanish 2. If you do the math out, my Spanish 2 cohort, which traditionally had been about 40, is now going to be about 65. It's going to stretch out, and we're going to get to that Spanish 5 level pretty quickly.
But if Spanish 1, I'm not trying to be argumentative.
No.
If Spanish 1 is 1 credit,
Yep.
and they're doing one semester as eighth, or half a semester, one semester as eighth graders, isn't
No,
that half credit?
they're doing a full year of Spanish
okay.
because it's a 52-minute class.
And it's actually because it's in the current middle school model, it's more class time if you take it in eighth grade than you would have gotten as a freshman.
Interesting. Thank you.
And the eighth grade, and there was a lot of conversation, and Erin quickly realized it and said, yeah, absolutely, I will take eighth graders who are interested, and we will. And she's in, again, small school. We're in a unique spot where she teaches a lot of high school Spanish 1, so it's not this major, what do I have to do to get them prepared? And she teaches, and Joanna's literally right next door, hey, what do you need to make sure kids are ready for Spanish 2? I want to make sure my eighth graders get that. So when they integrate in with potentially high school sophomores as freshmen, everyone's on the same page. Because they have a lot of work.
The other piece of it is, I think, one of the things 2 years ago when we were presenting course selections to kids at the high school level, we talked to them in terms of minimums to get into college and presented as like that's the only reason to do something. And the truth is, you study a language to learn to speak the language. And I think, by having a program that allows our kids to study it for 5 years, more of our kids are going to reach the end of senior year with the potential for some level of proficiency that goes beyond just enough to apply to college. And I think, I think that's where our teachers are trying to adjust the program to focus more on proficiency, less on credit accumulation. So I'm optimistic that a few years down the road, we will see our Spanish numbers being much better, especially since balancing that against some of the policy changes that have been made to reduce the total number of credits required. Kids have room to be able to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. That's going to be a priority to me.
Thank you.
Right, dumb question, probably the dual enrollment college composition, that's writing composition or music composition?
That's writing.
Okay, all right. Tell me more about this history of, are we talking like Beatles, Elvis, Bob Dylan history of rock and roll? Or, are we more like Nirvana, Radiohead, Guns N' Roses? What?
That is Tony's baby. He has had a lot of conversations with our growing band population.
Mm-hmm.
My instinct tells me it's going to start at Beatles and we're going to roll all the way forward.
Okay.
And really that birth of rock and roll. And he's got kids that are, we have several students who on a regular basis have vintage 80s band t-shirts on, whether or not they know, like, hey, Journey, I see that. Like, what's going on there? Journey. It's a cool logo. Do you know? And Mr. Fitzpatrick harasses them all the time. I'll sing the lyric at him, and the kid's like, what are you doing? Okay, we need some history of rock and roll here.
I love the idea. That kind of jumps off the page, really.
I had 306 questions, but if you're going to talk
I'm gonna get
306, all right.
I'll get that. Any other POS type stuff?
Could we pick a different acronym?
It's just one of those things, it lives, it's one of those things that lives really uniquely in the high school world, but anywhere you talk about it outside the world, what'd you just say? So 306s. This 26-27 program of studies is going to look, the 26-27 program of studies is going to look radically different. The 306s are going to have some major impact on our course offerings, our sequences. It fundamentally is going to change what we're offering for a high school degree, high school diploma, and we need to start having some conversations around things that are in the proposal around like a course like logic and rhetoric. That doesn't exist in any high school program of studies I've ever seen, but is going to be a requirement. This is something I can tell you that is a hot button conversation of the New Hampshire high school principals. It was the majority of our conversation the Friday before break, which I said, why don't we have a high school principal meeting the Friday before break? This is kind of a high leverage day. But the good news is everyone's on the same page. Everyone's digesting it, going, okay, how do we meet this? What do we do with this? And then are awaiting some of the technical advisory pieces that always come from the DOE once things become finalized. It is something that lives in my brain at 3 a.m. and I roll around going, all right, what are we going to do? How do we sequence this? Right now, that's all we're at. It goes back to some very pragmatic issues of scope and sequence. It's going to pick on logic and rhetoric. Where does that live? Is that a junior course, senior course? Is it a math course? All those things I know are going to come down from the DOE as a technical advisory, but right now we're just, I could have got it for you, sorry.
No, keep talking. I'm not here, keep talking. Pretend you don't see me.
Just trying to find ways to be true to that. So this will probably be the last quote-unquote traditional version of a Newmarket program of studies you'll see. Presuming 306s go in, we start to get those advisories from the state. By having a modified schedule of the 7-period day, we are going to be in a significantly better spot to respond to whatever changes do eventually come out. And I think having the schedule in place first and to do a year under our belt with this, because I know it's not perfect. I know something's going to jump off the page and go, how did we miss that? And we'll make that change. I'm not a believer in making too many changes at once because then you don't know what the impact is. So having the schedule change and then going forward with whatever comes out from the DOE as far as technical advisories related to 306, we'll be able to implement.
Actually, I think some of the change that may come about is less about the new 306s and more about us just asking internally, like sequences of courses, you know.
What makes sense where.
What makes sense where, so that curricularly it's getting the maximum bang for your buck. Making sure that kids have the math skills they need to take the high-end sciences and to make sure those things align. Making sure you're teaching history and so forth at the right point where kids are going to have the maximum, ability to process and understand it.
We may or may not have run into a situation where we did a curriculum review of scope and sequence in the fire district and found we taught the American Revolution 7 times, but never got past World War I. And it was one of those things of, oh, wait a second, why are we struggling with some of this stuff? And that this could be a nice impetus to have some of those scope and sequence conversations, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, so I was trying to pull up like the final 306s that were voted on last month.
Yep.
And so because I've been looking at them a little bit earlier today, so we can talk later because it's not impacting this one, but like, I agree. I think that it's like, it needs to be less ground shaking than like some of the rhetoric around it seems to have been. And like more like, because I like when I looked at the minimum requirements for graduation in the voted on 306, it is not very different from ours.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Not near as exciting as the council presentation.
No, I think you nailed it. I really think you did. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Thank you.
Dan, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. Just to remind our student rep, feel free to leave. I know you probably have a lot of stuff to do.
They're always trying to kick you out.
I'm always trying. I just want to make sure that I don't want to miss any wastewater budgeting talk we did last time, whatever it was. All right, moving right along, we'll head into budget communications. Todd was good enough to draft up a.
Emphasize draft. So, yeah.
So, I'm sorry, I was going to say in our agenda meeting, we talked about, and I think I talked about this last year, that we really do need to start having some consistency, or it'd be useful to have consistency in the format of our budget narrative, or not narrative, but budget presentation to the community as well as the location of it so that people know how to read it and where to find it.
So this is largely, again, there's clearly some spacing issues and some formattic stuff, so please don't. But this was kind of give you an idea of taking this year's warrant and putting it in the same format that we created that flyer last year. My thought is we don't necessarily have to bat it around tonight, Gary, but if people want to take a look at it and then just send me emails with what they're thinking. Ellen created this, we'll play around with it and bring it back. My thought is we want to have something ready to be sharing probably by deliberative. And does that beg the question of any other communications that we might want to consider?
Oh, that's a good point. We'd also talked about, as part of community outreach, maybe trying to attend some events and maybe do presentations on the budget that Todd's presented, such as PTA. We talked about There's another organization we thought about, I can't remember who it was.
You had many of the local, social clubs and so forth that exist, whether or not they would be entertain someone coming in and talking to them about it.
The business association,
yeah.
thing, if they had monthly meetings, or just to start getting, I mean, I know there's a lot of people watching at home, but
I mean, I think it's worth making the offer. I suspect you won't get a lot of takers, but making the offer is at least putting it out there that, that we're available to.
Does anyone have any other ideas of organizations or opportunities we might be able to? It just occurred to us or me that if we try to have an open house and invite people in, you usually don't get a large audience, especially if it's a budget presentation. But if people are already gathering, then it's a great opportunity to take 10 minutes of their time.
Finding people where they're gathering.
That's the question.
Right.
Is where.
Like, where are people's third spaces?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it would be a quick turnaround, but the events that the counseling department are putting on, I just know from being in basketball the other day that there are quite a few parents going to the technology one. Even if it was, something where people could, do you understand like what's going on with the budget this year? Like an email list or, a few flyers for people to take with them on their way out or their way in.
Another thought possibly is, as opposed to going to a gathering like this and commandeering 5 or 10 minutes on their agenda, just be visible on the way in with an easel and a few handouts and just, be there to answer questions or.
Yeah, we do the same thing at sporting events here. If there's one thing we know people come to in Newmarket, it's sporting events. So just set up a table in the lobby and just let people, if they want to, come up and say, what's this about? And then you share it with them.
And I'm happy to, the PTA meeting, I have to look to see if it's next Tuesday or the following one, just because the way this month is. But I'm happy to
let us know what it is we can
coordinate or.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, you have the presentation narrative we can hand out. Or, we may not have this ready in time.
Well, that actually depends on how quickly people give feedback and how quickly we agree that we like it. It's not rocket science here. It's it's more a matter of making it look pretty, I think, more than anything.
Gary and I can do a basketball game. We will embarrass the life force out of our children.
Can we use the microphone?
Halftime. Stick a bunch of these in a t-shirt can and
I also,
I get to dress up as a mule.
With the money amounts, I think that the visuals are going to be key in terms of how close the default budget is to the proposed budget, and even.
That's a good point.
If there's some way to put some of that, some sort of pie chart or something in the
bar chart
in the teacher's contract, so that people aren't just seeing numbers and thinking, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Oh,
I have one comment on the Article 4. If she could make that the whole width of the paper, so it
I see what you're saying.
pushes 5 and 6 down.
Yep.
And it's
for
kind
balance.
of like, it
Yeah.
breaks it up, like,
Yep.
and then it says, hey, wait, if 3 isn't approved, this is what's going to happen.
Good point.
You know what I mean? Because it just seems weird, it goes 4, 6.
Yep.
To me, I don't know.
That's easily done.
But otherwise, I think it's, and I like how she did the red round. Looks good.
Yeah, I can reach out to Alan too and maybe put some ideas in. Because I think, the budget, like you said, the default budget's so close that it'd be really easy to show that in 2 bar charts, or in a bar chart. And maybe we need a little clarification around the proposed budget, the wedge, what the wedge represents. But
So I just go back to the deliberative session last year and the pie chart that's still bothering me months later. I think that they can be very effective at being very clear about what it means,
Yeah.
and it also can be very effective at skewing what
Yeah,
people
sure,
think.
Sure. Great.
All right, so if people want to send thoughts to me, I'll work with Ellen, and then we'll send it out to you again. I don't think we need to wait till the next meeting. We can just give feedback, and when we have something, I can send it out, and you guys can just say yes or no.
All right, next item is, I'm not really sure we needed it, but a discussion of the warrant article recommendations. We are going to vote on them, so I'm not entirely sure we need to
No,
necessarily have a
you can
discussion unless
either do
anyone
it now
does.
or wait. It's, yeah.
Does anyone want to have a discussion on the warrant articles that were?
They seem to be what we discussed last.
We discussed, exactly. Yeah, so, all right. Let's look. Then we have some second reads.
Seems like it's been a very long time since the first read, so
Yeah.
it might be worthy of reminding you what these are. It's relatively minor stuff. EHB is the data records retention policy. We simply added a section for digital records, so that's new. Everything else is the same. And then the facilities use, it's really more, as we've opened up the facility more to outside use, we realized the forms we were using did not match, and the practices we had did not match the facilities, so a lot of work was done to just make the facilities use forms and request forms match the reality of our facility.
Anyone have any thoughts on that? And the last item that's not on here, we've talked a lot about renaming the junior high to middle school, and I thought it might be useful if we maybe in the next agenda put on something to have an official vote to ask the administration to look into that and get back to us. I'd love to get this seated board's input on it, and then whatever the board looks like after the elections, we'll also be able to discuss it. So is everyone all right if we add that to next one?
That sounds great.
Great, thank you very much. Next up, we have donations. There aren't any. And we'll head right into action items. Approve the warrant articles. So we will read through those and recommend or not recommend. Todd, do you have those?
You want me to just read them?
Yeah, if you don't mind, they're not in here.
So Article 2?
Oh, did you provide me a copy?
Yeah, I did, but I can.
Oh, you're right. Sorry. Go ahead.
You want me to go ahead? Okay. Article 2, shall the Newmarket School District vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote of the first session for the purposes set forth herein, totaling $311,594. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $28,261,333, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Newmarket School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Roman numeral 10 and 16, to take up the issue of revised operating budget only, majority ballot vote required.
So I'd seek a motion to recommend Article 2 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Phil, second by Dan. Is there any discussion on Article 2? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's great. Let's see, Article 3, shall the district vote to approve the cost of items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Newmarket School Board, Newmarket Teachers Association, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels over those paid in the prior fiscal year. I guess I should read the years. So year 25-26, $697,797. 26-27, $706,557. 27-28, $686,755. 28-29, $509,208. And further raise and appropriate the sum of $697,797 for the upcoming fiscal year. Such sum represented the additional costs attributed to the increases in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at the current staffing level. All right, seek a motion to recommend Article 3.
So,
Motion by
Second.
Lonnie, second by Bill. Thank you very much. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Article 3 passes. You want to tag team, go back and forth. Article 4, shall the district, if Article 3 is defeated, authorize the governing body to call one special meeting at its option to address Article 3 cost items only. Majority vote required. Seek a motion to recommend Article 4.
We don't vote on that one.
I will
That's
not
by
vote on
law.
that one, thank you.
You don't really, it's a, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you very much. Article 5, shall the district vote to raise and appropriate $200,000 to be added to the School Improvement Capital Reserve Fund previously established for the purpose of improving, expanding, maintaining, renovating, furnishing, and equipping school buildings, and further to authorize the use of this money from the June 30th fund balance available for transfer on July 1st. No amount to be raised from taxation, majority vote required. Seek a motion to recommend Article 5.
So moved.
Second.
Bill, second by Dan. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Article 6, shall the district vote to raise and appropriate $65,000 to be added to the Special Education Trust Fund previously established to meet the cost of unanticipated special education expenses, and further to authorize the use of this money from the June 30th fund balance available for transfer on July 1st. No amount to be raised from taxation, majority vote required. Seek a motion to recommend Article 6.
So moved.
Motion by Dan, second by Amy. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. And that's it. Thank you folks very much. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's
Warren seven.
required by law. So
Yeah. We should vote that one down. All the
the
ones
board does
required by
not
law.
recommend this.
Okay. Seek a motion to approve the December 19th public minutes.
So moved.
Second.
I apologize. Motion by Bill, second by Dan. Any discussion, any corrections?
Committee updates under mine for the budget committee. Just, hope what I said, what I meant to say at least, is that the committee was impressed with Todd and the school district's responses, not that I was personally.
So you weren't?
He was unimpressed.
Dan was unimpressed what the committee was. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any other items? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Mr. Nazar, do you have?
Yeah.
Mr. Manifest.
I motion to approve the manifest in the total of, it's small this week, $432,392.81.
Motion of second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Smith, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Can we go back up and we approve the staff request?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, it wasn't on here. Thank you for reminding me. So we do have a staff request for policy. We have to approve any paraprofessional requested unpaid time off. We don't have the person's name here.
I generally don't give you that information.
I thought it wasn't.
You have last time previously?
I did.
Which,
I thought I-
yeah, I think,
Oh.
which is fine. I'm fine voting on it without that name, as everyone else is.
I swear thought I saw the name.
Yeah, you usually do.
I
Usually
do.
it's in there.
Well,
Oh, is that-
then I stand corrected. I thought I didn't, but all right.
Yeah.
No, I thought like when I went to this a couple days ago or yesterday or something, I saw a name in it.
Oh, it could be that Ellen stuck it in there and then I told her to pull it out.
Okay.
I thought we didn't do that, so maybe that's.
I have the name in my head, but I'm not going to mention it in public.
Do we even care about the name usually?
No.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would, just for the point of record, obviously the para contract is up for negotiation. It's the only bargaining unit where it's required that you approve unpaid leave time. It is an odd thing, and I would
Yeah.
love to see that go away, but that's.
Agreed.
Me as well.
Second.
Why do we really
All right, does anyone feel uncomfortable voting without knowing the exact person's name?
No.
Unless it's something
No.
that
I-
happens all the time.
Yeah. All right, seek a motion to approve the staff request.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Phil, second by Dan. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Manifest there. Okay, and we do need to head into a non-public for
Oh.
a few minutes. Channel 8, we won't be returning on air, so you can feel free to wrap up after this. I seek a motion to go into non-public meeting pursuant to RSA 91A32C, to discuss a legal matter.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second?
Dan Smith, Bill Lazaro. All right, by roll call vote, Lonnie Stebbins,
Aye.
Gary Swanson. Aye. Somebody else, yeah. Amy Tilton.
Aye.
Dan Smith.
Aye.
And Bill Lazaro.
Aye.
With that, we are in non-public at 7:01 PM.